risky from Brenchong because Elite 8, if Brenchong do decide to pick Crawl if it's left open, that means Elite 8 know their carries and they can just counter it. And also a Grace ban tempts a Lyra ban from Elite 8, so Brenchong are really trying something in this draft.
Yep, but although I would think that if in a double ban, if you pick up one mage, at least ban out the other mage. Granted, Grace is a decent ban going into that of Elite 8, but she is just not that uncounterable. Whereas a Scarf, and just judging from how Elite 8 plays, you would know that they really prioritize on those early game, and Scarf just does so well in terms of damage as compared to that of Celeste, with the Spitfire and Goop with a consistent damage over time. So I honestly do not think Grace is the viable ban. If you want, at least remove that Lyra from the fold, because you kind of risk it anyways at the end of the day. But, you know, honestly, Cruel is a very good pickup right now, but they are just going to fall back on that Lance.
What Brenchong wanted was they wanted to ban the Grace and then bait out the Cruel ban so they could pick Lyra. I'm pretty certain that's why they spent so long of bonus time thinking, because they weren't expecting a Lyra ban and let Cruel through. So they're like, well, we can't just pick it because then we're giving away our carries. That's the whole point of B-side, is you can counter pick. So Lance pick is a good captain. There aren't that many meta captains left. I think Arden is probably the next most meta captain. But we could see a Fortress from Elite 8. We know that it's definitely possible. Or maybe just a Roam Batiste. That would work extremely well. We know they're comfortable on Batiste. Well, they weren't allowed it in the last game, but it could work really well now. And maybe even Idris, but I think it's more likely we're going to see some range, something like a Vox again, or maybe even a Ringo/Gwen.
Yep, definitely. I mean, they can go for the off-tank Glaive, and like you said, they can go for the off-tank Batiste as well. They will settle for that Batiste. I guess it's a decent pickup going up against Lance. When Lance tries to come in onto your team with that Impale, you can ordain him, and that distance that he has to jump kind of does offset, or rather stuns him out of that Impale, and they will settle for that Scarf. So we will be seeing that off-tank Batiste, that carry Glaive, and of course the Scarf as the Crystal carry, the Crystal jungler, or maybe the carry even. But as for the side of Brenchong, they can just go for that Cruel at this point in time, like you say. But then again, the side of Elite 8, they have got a team comm that works very well into that Cruel, and thus Brenchong will settle for that Idris.
Yeah, they basically made it so that Elite 8 made it so that if Brenchong decided to go for their Celeste Cruel combination, that they were just countered so hard. Scarf does really well against Cruel. Batiste, as a captain, does fantastic. If Batiste is a carry, Cruel actually does really well against him. The weakness stacks stop Batiste doing work. And Batiste is horrible at stopping you engaging on him, but Batiste is fantastic at stopping you engaging on a squishy like Scarf. So now what Brenchong has gone, okay, you've picked well, we can't pick Cruel. Lane Glaive is good against Idris, but we're still comfortable that our Idris is good enough to beat your Lane Glaive. And if it gets to late game, I would be tempted to say that I think Brenchong will have the upper hand if they're even in gold, even in objectives, because they have got the Idris and Celeste, whereas Weapon Glaive isn't as good as Idris in the late game, and Celeste and Scarf are very similar.
Yep, I must agree with you on that, but we saw how Elite 8 really favors that early game, and thus, I mean, they have a very good comm going out for them. That is something that both of us cannot deny. They have got the Batiste, they have got the Scarf as well, and on top of that, they have that Glaive, and if so, they will, put this comp out like how Inex pulled this comp out, then they will place that Glaive in that of the jungle, and of course with that
maybe
Scarf in lane. That way they have got the lane advantage. On top of that, they have got the damage and the items for Scarf as well. But as we can see from the lobby itself, we will be seeing Hanjega to be placed in lane, and of course Official Hind on that Scarf. Oh wait, maybe Official Hind on the Scarf will just go into the jungle because he is the dedicated jungler after all. So at the end of it all, it is just down to execution coming up from both sides. If the side of Elite 8 will pull out the same rotation, then it might not work as well for them, because now the side of Brenchong, they have got a Celeste, they have got a stun as well, and if you allow an Idris to farm freely in that of lane, then he might be very, very fed up in that of the late game, and you might see some trouble for yourself.
Yes, we are now into the house to unfold for the second game. And I would agree with you that I think Scarf should go into lane in most scenarios in this kind of comp. because you have a glaive who can then rotate through the jungle and gank the laner. But up against a lane Idris, I much prefer to see a lane glaive. Weapon glaive does fantastic against Idris. He can really start a snowball and force Idris being unable to farm up effectively. So I do like Hunyegas going onto this lane glaive. Mr. Jim sneaking away that Elder Treant and the fronts as well, just to make sure that gold is got. And now I think it's very likely we're going to see Brenchong rotate as 3 up to lane. They come with the boots to stop the wave going over the turret. That's very nice of the captain to make sure that his carry can get as much gold as possible.
Yep, there is one thing though, Elite 8 rotating slowly but surely into the jungle of the side of Brenchong, and this is the kind of aggression that is always expected from Brenchong, both of them level 2 right now.
I think one going to be caught out by the end, double stun for the 5-bit core clap, but it won't be enough. First blood to the scarf, and now Official Highness waiting for those backs to spawn. Think1 wanted to face check the bush and see, oh, I wonder if they're in here. Before he could even get there, he realised, oh, yes, they are. I'm now in a bad position. And Official Hein, that's actually a really smart goop placement. And because if Celeste wants to try and catch him out, you'd have to walk through the goop, even though it wasn't ignited. So I don't think it was intentional. I think he did that for quicker clear speed, but it worked out. And with Sync1, a bit late on that Helio, but he will not be caught out. Scarf wanted to get his own jungle. And Hunyega's extremely low in lane. With the double invade by Elite 8 in the jungle, that means that Hunyega's is really struggling to farm up with the Chakram and with the Impale. But he will be all right under turret, I think. Brenchong are going to try and make it as hard as possible for him. If they get a kill now, that's massive. That's a massive wave that Hunyega's loses if he does die. And so he's going to try and sustain for as long as possible. Turret's just doing turret things onto Dead Hunt. That's interesting.
That is interesting indeed, but Elite 8, they will go on to Mr. Jim, but an Impale will come out onto Official High to stop any form of further engagement coming up from the side of Elite 8. Very interesting turret laser pointing there, thingy thing there. Well, at least it helped Hunyegas to secure some farm because...
It did, it really did help. I think Lance should have just tried to back off instead of trying to keep close to the turret range, because Hunyega's managed to get pretty much all of that wave. You see he's on 25 CS to Mr. Jim's only 18, maybe 21 after this wave. We get 21 now. So that's pretty good for Hunyega's, even though he was pressured so hard, he wasn't unable to farm. And now Scarf's going to actually try and get the Con Celeste, but will not be able to. Sync1 able to turn that around, and Dead Hunt picking up the kill. Very good for Brenchong. They want to be able to get to that late game as quick as possible when they probably will have the advantage. And Anime Save Me shouldn't be able to steal this. Dead Hunt should stop it, and he will. Dead Hunt manages to secure that LG.
Yeah, but the problem with that, just now that fight, at least when Official Hein and both Official Hein and Anime Save Me was in there, was that Anime Save Me laid down the Ordain on Sync1. Problem with that, Sync1 is a mage, just want to fight within that Ordain itself, don't want to go anywhere, and Official Hein just did not have that early reflex block and was just too close to, Sync1 at least, and allowed Sync1 to just land that core collapse on him and thus taking him down. Although we do see the Elite 8 now moving on to lane.
There's going to be the afterburn. Scarf easily able to pick up the kill onto Dead Hunt. He wasn't really out of position, but Hunyegas just with a really good afterburn to get him into that goop, get him into that Scarf, but easily pick up the kill. Now we have Mr. Jim wanting to push the wave, whereas Sync1 is now rotated up the lane. So Elite 8 aren't going to be able to pressure that hard, and Mr. Jim going to port home, get his Sora Blade. Actually can't quite afford it, so he hasn't got Diversion Pass unlocked just yet. Hunyega's going to rotate down. We haven't seen the same rotation from Elite 8, predominantly because Celeste has been staying in jungle, mostly by herself, and Idris has been staying in lane, similarly with Glaive. So they haven't been able to stay as 3, farm the jungle together, up to lane, push it, and then down to the sentry. And they haven't really done that yet.
Yep, and honestly, coming into this comp, they don't really have to quite do it as well, because there is always a threat that Idris can just outpush and be outfarm, can outfarm that of Hunyegas in the lane. And on top of that as well, it's that if Celeste rotate up into lane when you guys are rotating into her jungle, what the problem they see, or rather the side of Elite 8 can see and foresee, is that Celeste can easily push down the turret. So that is why they are very, they're playing more safe at this point in time and not just opting for that old rotations that they did in the previous game.
There's going to be the Ordain onto Mr. Jim. That's going to expire before he gets the stun off, and now Elite 8 could be trying to push the wave, but all the members of Brenchong are in lane, so they're going to be unable to
wow.
312 Spitfire Goop combo on Mr. Jim. That forces support home. Good minion candy by Dead Hunt to try and stop Elite 8 pushing this turret. And you know, you can see Official High, he wants to do it. There's the minion candy. Elite 8 are going for it. And what can Brenchong do? The answer is nothing. They will lose their sentry for 1 life. Scarf is so good. Look at that sentry just burned down almost to nothing now. And Dead Hunt misses the impale of the wall. Idris, this is another good way to counter rotation, is go to their jungle, but he was spread out by a scout trap, so now Mr. Jim knows he's in trouble. He knows that the members of Elite 8 are going to come back, and Jaeger's actually, I think, bootsing for that. He brought up some boots and used them. Now Mr. Jim in a poor position, and Jaeger's gets the minion. Now Mr. Jim will be dead. There is no escape from Mr. Batiste and Scarf. So yeah, still in their jungle, I guess it's not the worst rotation, but they had vision, so you were just unable to do that, and now Elite 8 going to rotate back up to lane, wanting to push the wave pretty soon and then rotate to sentry when it does respawn.
Yep, I mean, that is the best way, or rather the best thing about the rotation is that as long as you have got vision, there is nothing much that Brenchong can do. And on top of that, with the pushing capabilities of Scarf, even much more, I dare say, much more than that of Celeste. Celeste, you land your Helios, it doesn't do consistent damage over time, whereas for Scarf, you do, especially with that group of yours, and your burn damage is just insane, as well as we do see that Han going very, very low.
And if they do rotate down to the jungle to try and stop you taking the sentry, you can just push the turret, and Scarf will be fantastic at that as well. Ordained onto Mr. Jim, he's just going to back off. Anime Safety has got a couple of minion candies in the pocket, going to put them on this wave probably after they clear it. And Elite 8 looking to rotate down. Actually, they are going to rotate as 2. Now Brenchong cleared that wave very quickly. Will they get to the sentry in time? The answer would be yes. And so Elite 8 just going to back off. Dead Hunt sneaking away the tree. And that's another thing with this rotation. If you don't manage to push the wave in time, that's fine. Just back off. You don't have to take the sentry. But if you're much quicker than the enemy, that means you will get a quick sentry life.
Yeah, but Synquan was there in lane to help the side of a Brenchong push that wave as well. So I'm not surprised why they did manage to push the wave in time to just rotate down to catch that of Elite 8 off when they were rotating into the jungle. But very good play coming up from the side of Brenchong, just adapting to the strats that's, you know, Elite 8 is pulling out.
We're going to go a little bit of pressure. There's an Ordained onto Mr. Jim. He's popped his infusion. That's the fearsome shade, not quite connecting. Mr. Jim going very low. After them, but where is Idris? He's gone into Shimmer Strike inside Sync 1. And now Mr. Jim going to do a little bit of poke. Fountain was forced out by Elite 8. And Official Highness going very low. Then comes this wave. Good minion candy. Always minion candy away if you're fighting in lane. That gives you considerable more damage than the enemy. And now Enemy Save Me is going to try and defend this turret. Hines very low. And Hunyeg doesn't want to go too deep. And they're going to try and clear this wave as quick as possible with the Scarf Goop. Wave will go down. Official Hind very low. So is Anime Save Me. Mr. Jim's going to dive on the turret. This makes sense. He probably could pick up a double kill if he really gets it.
Oh.
Jim's going to fall. Jacqueline does manage to connect just barely with the Scarf. Now Anime Save Me wants to save Hunyegers. Will it be enough? Sync 1, lovely ordained by Anime Save Me. Sync 1 is not under turret, so Anime Save Me will have to back off. And that is a positive trade for Brenchong.
Yeah,
also, almost dead to the scout trap.
Yeah, positive indeed, but honestly, the side of Elite 8 not playing as well as previous game, they're kind of sloppy in terms of their rotations, firstly, and targeting as well. They were sloppy. They allowed Sync 1 to just poke them down before they just went in for that fight, and thus the side of Brenchong could have had the upper hand in that fight as well. And Mr. Jim, being an Idris, you can just go into the back lines, remove Official Hind from the equation, and Anime Save Me, as we all know, as an off tank, you're not exactly super tanky as compared to that of Lance, if not then Grace, and you cannot quite just hold the front lines that, you know, your allies, your enemies are doing, and that is just the main difference, or the one of the main.
There goes the minion candy by for Anime Save Me, try and help Elite 8 with this fight. Hunyeg is extremely low from the little bit of poke, which also is doing lots of damage on Mr. Jim now. Wow, don't stand inside that goop, it's going to hurt you a lot. Scarf Shatterglass first, really wanting to just get pure damage. You don't need CC because Scarf wants to also help push the wave, and so you don't need to use Frostburn on minions, just pure Shatterglass to try and clear that as quick as possible. Hunyeg is back now, full health, Ordained on Sync 1, he echoed the Ordained So Fearsome Shade is up. He's going to use it onto Dead Hunt. He's going to fear back Celeste. It's not quite enough. Phantom will save her life. So Ordained, the fear isn't up again. Echo was used on Ordained, unfortunately. And so now Elite 8 going to push the wave, and they're going to try and do the rotation again. A good impale from Dead Hunt. Force a fight. Visual high. Very low. Jimmy Strike picks up the kill. Big one on the back line. He's going to Jaeger's blocks up the corner. That's fantastic play. But now he's going to try and afterburn away. Mr. Jim wants to dive in. He will block the afterburn. Mr. Jim with the double. Can he get the triple? It's Anime Save Me has absolutely nothing. Ordained isn't even up after 3 seconds. But Mr. Jim misses the chakram. And now he's going to tank one turret. He should be okay. Dead Hunt would die from Crystal Sentry, but there is no vision, so he'll be able to port home. And preventing the ace and preventing any real objectives being taken.
Yep, once again, very sloppy rotation, or rather, very sloppy team fight coming up from the side of 8. They have better coordination in terms of that Fearsome Shade, and on top of that, Ordain and Scarf's Dragon's Breath, they would have probably scored 2 kills on into that of Brenchong, but because the Fearsome Shade kind of allowed the entirety of Brenchong just back away into safety for the re-engage. But honestly, I must commend Dead Hunt on this Lance as well, playing just very, very well, just landing all of those impales.
There's a good Ordained by Anime Save Me, so Dead Hunt will not land his impale this time. And we're seeing so much lane focus. This game is literally, it's like a battle royale with the Crystal Sentry involved. Everyone's just constantly in lane, rotate to jungle for shop, and then straight back up to try and either defend their first turret, because both teams know if they lose their first turret, they will lose their sentry very quickly. And that's going to be another Ordained by Anime Save Me. Just echo that. Idris with the double, so much damage. He wants to get the triple. This time, I don't see Anime Save Me being able to get away. The fountain isn't enough. Triple for Idris, and Brenchong dealing so much damage. Idris with the blaze.
Yep, so much damage indeed. And what do you think? I mean, I understand that, the team comp coming up from the side of Elite 8 really wants to isolate one member from the side of Brenchong. Problem with that is that they just cannot quite find it, and if they do go in, then it immediately is taken out by Mr. Jim. If not, then Sync 1 on that Celeste, as we did see a Solar Storm, a very massive one, going through the entirety of Elite 8, and just they have got no answer whatsoever. As I was saying as well, Scarf is so strong in that early game. We saw the amount of damage coming from Scarf with Spitfire and good combination, but come into this late game 13 minutes in, or rather mid game 13 minutes in, Celeste just seems so much stronger, and although you have got a lot of CC on your team for the side of Elite 8, they just cannot quite chain it and be coordinated with it, whereas for Lance, it's a one-man chain of CCs.
He has to land that impale, then he has to get an extra wall for the Githian wall to actually land a stun. Jaeger's maybe out of position. He's not with the rest of his team, and Brenchong are waiting in the bush. He knows the Hunt there, so he's going to back off and be careful. Brenchong also know that Glaive isn't there, but now he's got the back line. He's going to get the afterburn on Sync 1. Block doesn't quite connect, and the Ordained does land the stun. The awesome Fearsome Shade. Sync 1 is going to fall. Here's the Dragon's Breath. Scarf going in. Loads of damage, but Mr. Jim blocked quite a lot of it with that Shimmer Strike. Now he's going to fall, and now it's Dead Hunt trying to run away. Afterburn out of the goop, but he is going to just troll a little bit, see how long he can run for, but I don't think it'll be that much. Dead Hunt is going to fall to the Scarf. That is an ace for Elite 8, will be a turret and probably a sentry.
Yep, and that is a very good fight then, coming out from the side of Elite 8, not just being very coordinated then, and this is the power of that Glaive and Baptiste combo we've seen a lot as well. It's just that if you can chain those CCs together, your Fearsome Shade or your Ordain into that Afterburn, if not then Afterburn into Ordain, then you can definitely immediately eliminate one member of the enemy team, and then you definitely will have the numbers, or rather the advantage in numbers then, and you can proceed to move on to the next target. And in this case, Sync 1 in the particular fight was taken out so early in that fight that Mr. Jim just struggles and have to carry the entirety of his team. So that is something that Elite 8 did very well, just isolating Celeste, because Celeste really just do not have the mobility like that of Mr. Jim on that Idris, and just capitalizing and taking advantage of that. Just very well played coming up from the side of Elite 8.
Yeah, definitely. The afterburn was on point, and then once they tried to block it, it didn't quite come through. the Baptiste Ordain just kept Celeste in place, and the Fearsome Shade was used spectacularly to make Sync 1 pretty much impossible to escape. Now, we haven't actually seen an Echo Fearsome Shade yet, and Fernando Save Me hasn't actually used it on that. Dead Hunt going to roll to dodge the split fire. Now, Elite 8, they've only taken 1 sentry, so the rotation they tried just hasn't worked out this game. They now need to fight much more like a late game team fight where they get kills, they go for turrets and Kraken instead of just going for what seems like an unimportant sentry at this point. Because you know, if team fights, if they're going to go towards sentry, you either back off and take Kraken, or you dive under sentry to get the ace.
Yep, definitely. I mean, but at this point in time, we saw in the previous game they enjoy picking up fights in the jungle of Brenchong, but in this particular game itself, they can't quite do it, and thus they're putting a lot of emphasis in that of lane. We do see all 3 members of Elite 8 all in lane as well. Glaive is nowhere to be found. Mr. Jim in the spot that's rather dangerous.
Synquan trying to stay away from Jaegers, and the Afterburn doesn't quite connect, so he's in a bad position now. We'll go for Idris. Mr. Jim falling very low. Afterburn hunt back Synquan. I think that was out of the Solar Storm. Synquan was channeling up his ultimate, but he got Afterburned out of it. Glaive with the plays, and now Mr. Jim going very low. He can't go through that goop because he would almost die. And now Visual Hine is going to try and Dragon's Breath. That's very risky. He's going in. Solar Core Collapse, going to stun you out of it. Back off. And Glaive's going in. Now onto Mr. Jim, gets 1 kill. He wants to go on to Synquan. Can he get the second? Looks like he won't, and no, he won't. The Scarf is too low to try and help him. 1 kill traded both ways. I think the Glaive diving was kind of worth it. He picked up Idris, couldn't get Celeste, but that's an even trade for both teams.
It is rather even all throughout, but their target really is Synquan. Excellent afterburn though, I must say, coming up from Han Jaeger on that Glaive to stun the Solar Storm out of stun Celeste out of a Solar Storm. So very good play coming out from Han Jaeger. But you know, I personally think that Glaive camping up in the top spot and then initiating wasn't quite coordinated yet because the team was just too far away. There were no other follow-up coming up from the side of Elite 8, and thus that's why they couldn't clear up the entirety of Brenchong. But coming into the next fight, as long as they can be more coordinated, and like I said, I've been going on about this, the side of Elite 8 has to be very coordinated in terms of the team fight because a lot of their CCs displays the movement and the position of the enemy team. Like, we have Ordain, yeah, and then we have Fearsome Shade that can push the team. If you echo your Ordain and put Ordain on both carries and Fearsome Shade them out of it, right? So both carries get stunned, and then Glaive will have free will as to choose who to punt into the team itself and who will be the first target locked down. But then we have to understand as well that Han is constantly on the hunt.
Maybe caught out, yeah. Dead Hunt's trying to find someone, trying to find an Impale, trying to get onto that Visual Hine to let his carries deal as much damage as possible. But Jaegers wants to find an Afterburn. Good shotgun from Mr. Chip, dealing a lot of damage, and now Brenchong are just trying to push the wave. They could rotate to Kraken, it'd be risky. Elite 8 are just going to come and try and contest it. And now both teams are going to back off, so not much going to happen.
Yep, rather peculiar overdriving of skills coming up from Anime Save Me with bad mojo and of course that of Ordain overdriven instead of Fearsome Shade. Oh, another fight will be happening.
Be a fight under Sentry. Good block from Mr. Jim, blocking the Afterburn stun. Easy picks up the kill onto Visual Hine. MVP, nowhere near enough. Save Afterburn in 3 seconds. He will get over the wall. Just barely getting away. Not quite. Idris gets the kill. Now Anime Save Me left alone. 3 Sentry for Brenchong. And apparently the MVP wasn't the turning point in that fight. And Brenchong were 3v2. And so I think that was the main problem. Visual Hine got jumped on. There was no CC to save him because Anime Save Me wasn't there. So the Afterburn from Glaive just couldn't. They tried to stun out Mr. Jim, but he just blocked it. And now here's the Fearsome Shade. It's available. Mr. Jim, see, this is how you make sure that your team's as good as the Kraken. As soon as you see the enemy, dive on them and try and kill them. What's the Batiste going to do to steal it? Absolutely nothing, because Idris dived in to try and kill it.
Yep, I mean, trying to scare them off is pretty much is good enough, especially since there's a roam that's trying to come and steal the Kraken, so you can just immediately jump on him, give up Kraken for a little bit, because if you do take out one member, then you can assure yourself that it is a confirmed Kraken taken. So the side of Brenchong now looking very strong, hoping to push this turret down and hoping to crack open the base of Elite 8 as well, with that Kraken just ramping down, or rather just strutting down that Isle of Halcyon fold.
And then Celeste's going to try and push this out. Scarf has fantastic back there. MVP is going to join the fight. No, he's not. He's had enough of you. He's just going to back off. And Jaeger's very low. That's off the way. This Kraken is still extremely healthy. There's the Impale going to land onto Anime Save Me. He's now going to have to back off. Solar Storm going to connect. Anime Save Me now is back into the Sanctuary. Look at those Helios. So many from Celeste. Official Hein has got the goop onto the Kraken, trying to do as much damage as possible. Good afterburn. Sigmon's out of position. He's going to block out the Ordained. It won't be enough. Matisse picks up that kill. Official Hein going on to Mr. Jim. Lovely Simmer Strike gets on top of him. Official Hein needs to get into the Sanctuary. And the Fear was blocked. That was massive. He would have gone into the base if not. And now that is going to be Mr. Jim not quite falling. Jaegers, what are you doing? Just go there to the Blood Song to actually pick up the kill. Now Jet Hunt is going to try and do as much as he can. The Echo on the Githian wall for BM. Ace for Elite 8, but their base is exposed.
Yep, the base is exposed, and you have both Idris and, of course, that of Lance that can dive through. Idris can shot step in if you know the walls to jump. If not, then at least, or you can just strike into your Lance.
I don't think Idris can actually go over that wall from that way. I know he can do it the other way.
Oh, really? Okay,
yeah.
so maybe that's the case. But I know Lance can go through the wall that way, so you can just Shimmer Strike onto Lance. Just let Lance piggyback you in. But wow, the amount of damage, and of course the amount of objectives that the side of Elite 8 went through just because of one ace and a misplay coming out from the side of Brenchong. I'll not say it's a lot of misplays, but it's more like the tunnel vision of going in, of trying to end the game, and of course secure kills while you're at it. That is just clouded the judgment in that particular team fight, and thus Elite 8 could come out on top of that. But on top of that, but really honestly, it was just Brenchong though capitalizing on the small mistake that Sentry fight was what that allowed Brenchong to come this far and push this far. So as long as the entirety of Elite 8 sticks together, knows how to change the CC well, then they definitely would have this game in their pockets. Brenchong, or rather Dead Hunt on that Lance, may be in trouble right now. Mr. Jim as well on half health, so it's a very good time for the side of Elite 8 to fight. If not, then try to secure this Kraken. But if they are going to do so, the side...
Where is Mr. Jim? What's he doing? Is he going for the back door? No, he's going to port. Oh, it's extremely boring. I think they could just push the wave, and then that forces Elite 8 to either respond or possibly just lose the game. So Elite 8, they need more vision. Anime Save Me, I think he should sell his flares for now, or the flare and the bad mojo in the off, and didn't catch out Mr. Jim. So now they caught Idris porting. This is going to be a Kraken started up by Elite 8, but they don't want to go too deep. I think Anime Save Me should, at the moment, sell his flares, buy a couple more scout traps, pop them down, then go back to shop and buy flares, because you currently have such little vision. If it just does go for the back door, you're going to know a little bit too late. And so Elite 8 going to almost be caught out by the Impale. Official Hein is okay. Now Jaegers is split from his team. He's got an afterburn, so he'll be able to get with them. And now if Brenchong take this Kraken, I think Elite 8 have to kill it. I don't think Elite 8 can just push for win if they get the kill. And they have no idea. The Fist of Shade is not in time. And that will be secure by Idris. They go for the water. Elite 8 wants to fight. Ordained onto Idris. The Elite 8 going up towards Mr. Jim. And Official Hein will be impaled. And the afterburn gets a minion. Mr. Jim does manage to block the Ordained. Now is in a bad position. Scarf with the goop. And now Elite 8 going for the Kraken. Kraken will die very quickly to the Scarf, even though she is walking down the lane. So we'll walk out of the goop pretty quickly. Now Elite 8 going to try and burn this Kraken down. Brenchong need to either fight or they will just get nothing out of this. The Pale lands on the Scarf. There's the one stun. There's the two stun. By the last, and Sync 1 is going to block. Not out the Ordained. There's the second Ordained. What are you going to do? Sync 1's going to fall. Idris, he's going for the back door. Glaive's going to be able to port home. Scarf will most certainly not. What are you going to do, Elite 8? Idris is already at your Vein Crystal. Mr. Jim will be able to Shimmer Strike into Glaive if he actually wants to. And he will. There he goes. Jaegers does get the kill. Gets the Vein first. Well played to Brenchong. And that is game 2 going over to them.
But I mean, even that at the end of it all, if the side, if Glaive did not kill that of, say, who's that, Mr. Jim on that Idris, then the Kraken would have probably just pushed in anyway. So very well played coming out from the side of Elite 8, or rather from the side of Brenchong. And like I said earlier on, Lance is just such a valuable pickup from Brenchong, especially since, but I mean, honestly, in the first game, not much of a performance from that Lance, but in this second game, we saw the utilities and of course the amount of CCs that Lance brings to the table, and it's not nothing, it's nothing to just call shot off that, Catherine can bring to the table.